Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be talking more about this issue of this so-called transgender swimmer on the women's team on the University of Pennsylvania. We now have an issue where 16 of the teammates of this transgender swimmer, 16 of them, are petitioning to have this woman, this man, I should say. I have to get these right because everything is connected with everything else. And so if you start calling a man a woman, if you start referring to him as a she, then you're falling down the rabbit hole and you're already buying into the argument of the error. So it says that 16 Penn swimmers issue letter in support of new transgender athlete rules. Now, that is a very misleading headline. These 16 Penn swimmers, these women swimmers, are against this dude swimming on their team. He shouldn't be there. They don't want him to be there. But the headline in the liberal leftist, really radical fringe MSNBC, NBC News is 16 Penn swimmers issue letter in support of new transgender athlete rules. So if you weren't careful in your reading of this, if you just read the headlines, you'd say, oh, the 16 Penn swimmers, the women swimmers, are in support of this transgender swimming. No, exact opposite. They are not in support of the transgender athlete, this so-called Leah Thomas. This is a man, and they don't want him swimming on their swim team because it's an unfair advantage. And so they are petitioning to have him removed. But you have to read into the article to even understand what they're talking about in this article. You see how the propaganda media has so taken over. It's no longer simply enough to read a headline. You have to read the article because the headline is probably going to be misleading because there's so much ideology and politics involved now in journalism that you can't even understand what they're talking about unless you do some of your own investigative journalism to try to figure out what the headlines actually mean. These swimmers are against this dude swimming on their team. That's the bottom line. So let's read on. It says that the swimmers argue that their trans teammate, Leah Thomas, has an unfair advantage and that some of them have lost competitive opportunities as a result. Well, they shouldn't even have to make this argument. Where are the adults in the room? Where are the Olympic officials? Not Olympic, but NCAA officials, as well as Olympics. They're involved in sort of an indirect way here because a lot of the governing bodies around the swimming don't actually want to come out and make a stand against trans athletes. They don't want to take a stand against this dude trying to swim in the women's competition. And so they keep deferring to other swimming organizations and passing the buck, kicking the can down the road, so to speak. So let's find out more about what this issue is about. It says here, 16 members of the University of Pennsylvania women's swimming and diving teams sent a letter Thursday to the university and the Ivy League applauding USA's swimming's new policy for transgender athletes and arguing against teammate Leah Thomas' participation in the Ivy League championship this month. So, they're for the new policy, which excludes Leah Thomas. That's kind of a convoluted sentence here that this Joe Arukaba has to put together to try to mislead people at first. The letter urges Penn and the Ivy League to support the swimmers as biological women and not engage in legal action with the NCAA to challenge USA Swimming's new policy. So they're telling University of Pennsylvania and the Ivy League don't block the new policy which would prevent Leah Thomas from swimming. Don't block that. USA Swimming, the sport's national governing body, released a new policy for elite transgender athletes Tuesday. The policy requires trans women to undergo hormone therapy and have a low testosterone levels, less than 5 nanomoles per liter of blood, continuously for at least 36 months before applying to compete at the elite level. They must also provide evidence that going through puberty as their sex assigned at birth does not give them a competitive advantage over their cisgender female competitors. Okay, this is a lot of mumble-jumble gobbledygook. They have to prove that being born a male did not give them a competitive advantage. This is ridiculous. Of course it gave them a competitive advantage, as any scientific inquiry into this issue will prove. So they're playing smoke and mirrors here. They're trying to say that you have to jump through all these little hoops, and then if you do that, then you can swim. And there shouldn't even be any of these hoops because it should be such a slam dunk issue. Of course the men can't compete with the women. That eliminates all women's sports. If you have men competing against women, you are defeating the very purpose of why these women's sporting programs were put forth in the beginning. And then this cisgender term. This is just gobbledygook coming up through the academic circles. This is just a sociological, and actually it's just a smoke and mirrors. Cisgender supposedly means what you were born as. So if you're a little boy, you're born a baby boy, that would be you're a cisgen male. And then if you were born a baby girl, you're a cisgen female, which is ridiculous. You don't have to put all of these fancy words and that can't be understood by the person in the street. You just are that. You're not cisgen. You're not this special word, that or this. You're just a boy or a girl. U.S. Swimming said it was prompted to release the policy after NCAA scrapped its 11-year-old guidance for trans athletes and adopted a sport-by-sport approach similar to the International Olympic Committee. Under new NCAA guidance, athletes will look to their trans athlete policies developed by their sport's national or international governing bodies. For swimming, those bodies are USA Swimming and FINA, International Swimming Federation, but FINA is still developing its own policy. Excuse me. NCAA released a new policy last month after weeks of pressure from critics who said that Thomas's participation is unfair. It is. Well, why is this couched in like they say, critics say that his participation is unfair? Really? Are we at the point in our civilization where we have to be so dumb and be so stupid and be so foolish as to even have a debate over whether if a man is swimming against girls, he has an advantage? Of course he has an advantage. Of course. It's not even a debate. Thomas swam on the men's team at Penn for 3 years, so he was good enough to make the men's team on a major college. Then began swimming on the women's team in November. Isn't that unfair on the face of it? Isn't that enough to disqualify this guy? In December, he became, I refuse to use those false pronouns. In December, he became the target of transphobic rhetoric when he swam the top times in the nation this season in the 200-yard freestyle and the 500-yard freestyle. No, he did not become the target of transphobic rhetoric. He became the target of criticism because he's a man running or swimming in a women's competition. That's why. It's not transphobic to point out the obvious. A man is swimming against women. That's not transphobic. That's not transphobic rhetoric. That's reality being described. Again, why do we have to dance around on these eggshells and not offend the trans community? These people are insane, and they're trying to make us go insane. It's unclear whether the USA swimming policy will affect Thomas's eligibility. So after all of this, it's still not clear whether he is prohibited from swimming. A spokesperson for the NCAA said that in an email that, consistent with the group's policy, the Committee on Safeguards and Medical Aspects of Sports will review this change at its next meeting and will make recommendations as it deems appropriate to the NCAA Board of Governors. Oh, they're acting like this is so official, and they're acting like they're deliberating, and they're acting like they're making some intelligent decision, when all of this is just a smokescreen for they're too chicken to say, hey, dude, you can't swim with the women. That's what they all have to say. It's obvious. The letter from Thomas's teammates, these are girls who are swimming on the girls' team, and they're saying to the governing bodies, don't let this dude swim. It's unfair. Which was sent Thursday by Nancy Hogshead-Mocker, an Olympic champion in swimming and founder of Champion Women, a nonprofit group that provides legal advice for girls and women in sports, said they fully support Thomas in her decision to affirm her gender identity. Okay, here's the problem. Here's the big problem, and as Christians, we have to focus in on this. It's not enough to just object to the outcome. It's not enough to say, oh, that's not fair that this person, Lia Thomas, as he calls himself now, that's not fair that he gets to swim with the women. That's not fair. Okay, it's not enough to say that. We have to say why it's not fair. We have to explain that men are different than women. We have to explain as Christians that in the beginning, God created them male and female. So there's a male sex and a female sex. They're not the same. So in sports competition and in other areas of life, we cannot treat a male as if he were a female, because when you do that, you make it unfair if you're going to have competitive sports or competitions in certain areas. But see, this group, these swimmers, they say, well, we fully support Thomas in his decision to affirm his gender identity. They should not be saying they support him. They should not be saying we support this whole idea of transgenderism. See, that's undermining their whole case. Lia has every right to live his life authentically. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have the right for to demand of society that they conform, people in society conform to his mental illness. He does not have the right. A crazy person does not have the right to expect and demand of society that it be crazy too, to go along with crazy. Lia has every right to live his life authentically. No, he doesn't have the right to live his life authentically if that means that I have to conform to his craziness, which Hogshead-Mocker shared with NBC News says. However, we also recognize that when it comes to sports competition, that the biology of sex is a separate issue from someone's gender identity. It's not. It's not. Because if this dude is trying to identify as a woman, okay, that is leading up to his participation in women's sports. And so what we as Christians have to do to be consistent, we have to say, first of all, there is no such thing as a man transitioning into a woman. Impossible. God created them male, stop. Female, stop. There are two categories of human beings that God created. He created males, one category, and two, female, another category. That's it. Male cannot become female, cannot transition to become female. Female cannot transition to become male. Impossible. It goes against the created order. It goes against God's will. It goes against everything we know about what God did in creation. And so as Christians, we need to say, stop trying to affirm these transgenders in their private life and then say, but they can't publicly swim in the competitions. No, we don't affirm their so-called transition in their own personal life. We don't affirm that. We don't affirm their so-called pronouns. That's why I don't give female pronouns to this dude, like the women swimmers are doing. Leah has every right to live her life authentically. No, that's incorrect. Leah has every right to live his life authentically, just as long as it doesn't impose on anyone else. So in other words, he doesn't get to tell society how to react to him. We can disagree with him. We can discourage him, but we shouldn't be forced to conform to his mental illness, which is gender dysphoria. The athletes contend that Thomas has an unfair advantage and that some of them have lost competitive opportunities as a result. The athletes contend? They're contending? Isn't it obvious to everyone? It's not just the athletes. It's everybody with a brain looking at what's going on there says this is insanity. This is madness. Why is it so hard to break through this blindness here? People are so caught up in this transgenderism that they can't even see plain reality when it hits them in the face. Yes, Thomas has an advantage, and it's unfair because he's a dude swimming with the girls. And some have complained they've lost competitive opportunities. Obviously they have. If you have a man swimming on your team and he's winning all the awards, you as a girl don't get those awards, and you don't get those opportunities, and you don't get those scholarships, and you don't get the accolades, and you don't get the records that are rightly yours as a woman because this dude is breaking all the women's records. They say that of the 41 members listed on the team's roster, only 18 are chosen to compete in the Ivy League championships, which begin February 16th. We have been told that if we spoke out against his inclusion into women's competitions, that we would be removed from the team or that we would never get a good job offer. So they've been pressured into accepting this transgenderism. And if you question it, oh, well, then you're transphobic. That's exactly what this journalist is trying to label them, transphobic. When media have tried to reach out to us, these journalists have been told that the coaches and athletes were prohibited from talking to them. We support Leah's mental health, and we ask Penn and Ivy League to support ours as well. Well, that's the problem. We support Leah's mental health. They shouldn't be supporting Leah's mental health because Leah is mentally ill and she needs help. He needs help, excuse me. It's really confusing to try to get these pronouns right. He needs help big time because he's trying to do something impossible, and that is he's trying to be a woman when he's actually a man. And these women athletes who are just swimming in their sport, they're caught in the midst of this person's insanity. This mental illness that he is suffering is now spilling over, and others are having to suffer for it. The athletes conclude by asking Penn and Ivy League to refrain from suing the NCAA or trying to interfere with or weaken the new policies established by the U.S. Swimming, urging that the policy should be allowed to stand so that we are able to finish our swimming season with distinction and pride. They said, look, we just want to swim in women's swimming, and we don't want to have to swim against men. And that's what they're being told they have to do. The other week, I think it was last month maybe, this Leah Thomas, this dude who is a man swimming in a women's swim team, he was actually joined in the pool by another Ivy League transgender athlete, so-called, And these two dudes were beating all the girls in swimming. Of course they will. They have an unfair advantage. A spokesman for Penn Athletics did not return a request for comment regarding the letter or the potential for a lawsuit against NCAA. A spokesman for the Ivy League said it does not publicly respond to letters submitted to its office. So it's an Ivy League school. Now, let me remind you, the Ivy League schools are supposed to be the elite schools. They're supposed to be smart. They're supposed to be on the cutting edge intellectually. They're supposed to be wise. They're supposed to be the pool from which we draw our leaders, our political leaders, and our social leaders. Ivy League education is supposed to be the very best of the best. And yet these foolish people are having to grapple and it's such a struggle to determine whether a man should be swimming on a woman's team. No, it's not a hard issue. It's very easy. Of course he shouldn't. Of course he shouldn't. You don't even have to have graduated from high school to know that. You don't even have to go to high school to know that. And yet these so-called smart, intelligent, wise people, what does the Bible say? Professing themselves wise, they became as fools. They can't even make a simple decision. Should this man be swimming with the women? No, that's it. That's the simple decision. Under no circumstances will a man be swimming with the women. That's the simple decision. There's no need to investigate. There's no need to grapple with it. There's no need to deliberate lengthy discussions and focus groups and expert medical witnesses and none of that. You just have to look. No, this dude is not going to swim with the girls. It's an unfair situation. And yet the Ivy League elite wise people in our society are going down this road of foolishness. Thomas declined an interview, but he told the Swim Swam podcast in December that he began hormone therapy in May 2019. You know what? I don't care when he began his hormone or his treatment or whatever he did, whether he cut off this, that, or sewed on this, that, or the other body part. It doesn't matter. He is a biological man. And all of this foolishness about nanograms and manograms, and he has to testosterone levels and suppression therapy and all of this, it's foolishness. It doesn't matter what treatments he's gone through or what he wants to go through or what operations he's gone through. It doesn't matter any of that. He is a dude swimming on a woman's team. That's not fair. Which means that he has been on testosterone suppression therapy for 32 months. So what? And a new policy requires 36 months of documented low testosterone. Oh, okay, great. Joanna Harper, a trans runner and visiting fellow for transgender athletic performance at England's Loughborough University, who published the first performance analysis of transgender athletes in 2015, said no other national or international sports governing body has required more than 24 months of hormone therapy or low testosterone for trans female. So what? So what? She added that most policies, he added, I bet you he's a man trying to masquerade as a woman. He added that most policies, including the previous NCAA policy, required 12 months of low testosterone or hormone therapy, and that there is no data suggesting that 36 months will be more effective in mitigating advantages than 24 months would be. See, this whole debate and whole discussion is headed in the wrong direction. You don't have to go down those roads. You just ask yourself, was this person born male? Yes. Okay. Disqualified from the women's teams forever. I doubt that it's a coincidence that Leah will have had 34 months of hormone therapy by March 20th, when the NCAA championship will be held, Harper said in an email. It is also not clear if the NCAA will suspend Leah from the NCAA championships, given that he was eligible weeks ago. Has done nothing to incur suspension, has consistently done everything asked of him by the NCAA. Well, it doesn't matter what the NCAA asks of him. He's still a man. He shouldn't be running or swimming in this. The letter from 16 of Thomas's teammates followed another letter released Tuesday in which several other teammates said they supported Thomas's inclusion. So you have several other how many? Like one or two? We don't have a number. It's probably like one or two. See, again, the spinning of this whole thing by NBC and a lot of the mainstream media, they're clearly wanting the man to swim with the women. We value him as a person, teammate, and friend, the team member said in an earlier statement, which a Penn spokesperson shared with NBC News by email after it was first reported by ESPN. The sentiments put forward by an anonymous member of our team are not representative of our feelings, values, and opinions of our entire Penn team, composed of 39 women with diverse backgrounds. No, 38 women and one man. Get it right. So you have some, maybe one or two on the team, maybe two or three, I don't know, a very small group, handful, that say, oh, yeah, he should be swimming on the women's team. Why don't they say their names? We recognize this is a matter of great controversy and are doing our best to navigate it while still focusing on doing our best in the pool and in a classroom. Neither of the two letters were signed. The team members who have reportedly spoken to the press about Thomas' participation have done so anonymously. Yes, because they will be canceled by the radical left. They will be hunted and hunted down and doxxed, and life will be made miserable for them. Their careers ruined, personal lives destroyed. That's the way the radical left operates. The transgender community will do that. The LGBTQ community will come after these people and try to ruin their lives. Yep, they spoke anonymously. Yep, of course they would. But this whole controversy, we recognize this, a matter of great controversy. That's a problem. Whenever in society you have something as simple as this, should a man swim on the women's swim team? No. Easy. Done. Finished. If that's a big controversy, whether that question can be answered yes or no, then that shows how bad society is. And we live in a society that is heading down, down, down. And as Christians, we can't just say, oh, we support the women in their quest to have women's sports and we don't want the man to swim. We have to say why we support the women. And we have to bring clarity and wisdom and cogency and precision to this argument. And we have to cut through a lot of the rigmarole and the garbage that is being pushed and say, look, God created male and female. Case closed. Men cannot become women and women cannot become men. And we need to stick to that and never give that up. Because if we give that up, we give up sanity. Well, I hope that's been a helpful commentary. We'll see you back next week on Christian Answers.